Welcome to the quick and dirty guide to the Kamala Harris and Tim Walz presidential ticket. Now, just a really quick explanation about what's going on with this video. This is going to be quick, dirty, and fast. So we're trying as much information as we can in. There will be no charts. Later, once they're elected, we can go back and actually do full formal breakdowns of their charts. They will win. But here's what happened. So here's the backstory here, right? So yesterday, I spent the better part of 4 hours trying to put together this beautiful PowerPoint, which I'm looking at right now. And then as soon as I finished everything and went back to review, I realized that the audio never recorded. Somehow the audio got corrupted, which means that the most important part of the PowerPoint and the video, the information, wasn't in the computer. So, and that was 4 hours of my life I'm never getting back. Not to mention the fact that when I was done, the video itself was about 2.5 hours long. It was a long video. So we're going to bypass all of that. We're not doing any fancy graphics or anything like that. If you really, really, really have a burning yen to see these charts, I'll put them up in the community tab. You can take a look at them there. But for now, just follow along with me. If you know enough astrology to understand what I'm talking about when I talk about planetary placements, this won't be a big issue for you. You can literally look at the charts online and follow along that way. If you don't know enough astrology to follow what I'm saying, then maybe wait for the proper video with the actual charts. In the meantime, because, and I said this yesterday, because the debate is tonight, oh boy, this is going to be good. I figured this was a very good time to finally sit down and do the chart of these two people. Now, yeah, anyway, let's get started. Harris Walz 2024, the DNC ticket to success. Now, some things I just want to point out in case you forgot or didn't realize, and I certainly overlooked this myself. When we talk about the DNC, the RNC, the presidential picks, the cabinets, the members of the administration, blah, blah, blah. We're talking about a giant machine here, right? So it's not just the president that's at issue, right? Because the president is the symbol, the figurehead, the face of the band, right? If any of you are old enough to remember Van Halen, rock band, who was amazing, by the way, their front man, their lead singer, was David Lee Roth, and he was at least 50% of their megastar success. Because, David Lee Roth, yum. So when you thought of Van Halen, you always thought of David Lee Roth. The two went together like peanut butter and jelly, and oh my God, David Lee Roth. So the thing about it, though, is the band itself is what made the music. David Lee Roth was just the frontman performer, the pretty face, for the band. But ultimately, without the band making the music, David Lee Roth was just another singer. Like, he wasn't that special. He was good looking, but he wasn't that special. Together, the two is what made the package. So the United States government is kind of the same way when we talk about presidents and cabinets and administrations. The president is the face of the band, right? The David Lee Roth of the band. And the administration, the campaign teams, the DNC, the RNC, right? All the people behind the scenes making the wheels turn, that's where the music being made. Those are the people responsible for a lot of what we're dealing with. So a lot of the horrendous, hateful, divisive, toxic, I don't have enough adjectives to describe what we've been through under the Trump administration, while Trump is the face of that, and he now owns that in history because he will always be associated with all of the horrendous results of his presidency that his cabinet, administration, and team members literally put forth and sown and sprouted and grew. It's still them that made those decisions, and still them that put those policies forward for him to sign, and still them that were instrumental in bringing this company to the grinding halt that it pretty much came to socially, and the regressive stuff as well. So keep that in mind. Like, we can hang one person in effigy as a symbol for all the crimes of everyone around them, their team members, but at the end of the day, those team members need to be held accountable too. So if you're not familiar, whether you're a Trump fan or you're not, you might want to, if you have some time, to go down a rabbit hole and review some history. Go back and look at the Trump cabinet. Look at the people in his cabinet. Look at the people in his administration. Look at the people responsible for the nonsense that we've been dealing with, right? And the horrible things that they've done, right? Which is all, I mean, this is the only time trickle-down theory works, is when you've got hateful people in positions of power. It makes it acceptable and okay for everyone underneath them, right down to street level with us, okay, to be just as hateful and awful. And that's exactly what we saw, okay? So it's the people, it's the team around the presidency that is just as much or more at fault. And in his case, maybe more so, because while he's a used car salesman, that's all he's ever been. That's what he's good at. That's what he does. Okay. He's a hustler and a used car salesman. With that said, separate from that one thing that he's very, very good at, the man is not very bright. Not very bright. He is not very well educated. He's not very bright. He does not understand global economics. He does not understand foreign policy. He doesn't understand military strategy. This man literally, he's an ignoramus. Okay. And he doesn't even have the wherewithal to practice good behavior, polite, proprietous behavior around other leaders and stuff. He's made us the laughing stock of the globe, among other things that have resulted from that administration. So with that said, he couldn't have done this on his own. All the stuff that you're looking at as far as policy making, these were made by other people and presented to him to rubber stamp. So as we move forward now, okay, let's move forward. As we move forward, now we're going to the Biden administration, Biden-Harris, which wasn't much better. And there's a whole conversation about Biden and why he was given this position by the DNC, kind of thing, blah, blah, blah. And, as far as I'm concerned, his weakness in handling Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, all this sort of stuff. I mean, he's done good things, but there are other, because you get soft in your old age, right? Death is coming. It's really close. It's at your heels like a dog. And you understand how huge that is. So you don't want to see more of it, right? So we get softer in our old age, which can be good. Some people get softer, some people get harder, like hard, brittle, nasty old people. Other people get soft. And Biden, because he's got a good heart, is getting soft, but that's not helping us. So blah, 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 which brought us all to the changeover, right, in leadership to Kamala, right, his vice presidential pick, which I'm sure he picked for reasons that have nothing to do with experience and competency. Okay, but she's here. She checks all the boxes in terms of optics. Because remember, it's not just him. It's the whole team around him that makes this pick. So he was given a list of candidates by people who selected them for him. And then it was discussed which one of these would be the best choice that he would approve of. But ultimately, the choices he was given, kind of like a limited buffet menu, like it was a fixed list. So he didn't have it's not like he randomly picked people out of the air. He was given a list to choose from. Here, you can have, column A, column B, or column C, but that's all you get. Those are your choices. Now let's talk about which one you're going to pick. All right. So now we're here. A couple months away from the election. Tomorrow is the big debate between Kamala and Trump. And we're heading into some interesting times. Now, the thing about it also, too, I just want to remind you guys of this, and then we're going to get into the actual charts, right? We're making progress. It might be hard to see, but we have turned a corner. We're making progress, and now we're gaining momentum, and we're moving. Now we're moving. So Kamala and Walz are going to win. I'm going to tell you that. I knew that before, but that was because it was the only choice I believed was possible. Like Trump winning again would have signaled the end of everything near and dear to our hearts. Sorry. And I promise you, if he wins and I'm wrong, I will never do another chart again. I will literally end the YouTube channel when we're done here, because there will be no point in moving forward. It will be disastrous, catastrophic. And I'm not saying these things lightly. So as far as I'm concerned, Kamala and Tim are going to win. Coach, I love Coach. Literally. So I just wanted to also say, with this particular combination, the people who chose the vice presidential pick for Kamala Harris did a fantastic job this time around. They've learned from their mistakes. And Coach Tim Harris, Coach, is literally the key that opens the lock. If it weren't for him, I don't think anybody would be as excited as they are. So Kamala can think that this is all about her being so amazing that people are just pouring buckets of money into their campaign, but it's not. a lot of the enthusiasm, well over half the enthusiasm she suddenly received is not only because it's a reaction to moving away from Trump, but it's also because we've got Tim Harris on the team. And Tim Harris has more integrity in his little finger than probably 90% of Congress put together on any given day, right? So watch that space. And now also too, as we get through this chart, you'll see Tim is going to be very, very important as we move forward. So there's a big evolutionary milestone that we have to hit. We're moving into it now. Like, watch the global news. Watch how the change in our consciousness is happening across the globe. All right, things we used to think acceptable and just kind of ignored are not happening. People are being held accountable and taken to task for things that are representative of much larger issues. Right, we're in a great place. We're in a great place. So, and Tim Walz is going to be instrumental somehow, some way, moving forward in this presidency, this administration, and the way the future evolves and moves more than we realize right now. So, okay, now let's look at Kamala Harris's chart. I'm sorry I don't have the chart to show you, but for those of you following along, Kamala is born on October 20th, 1964, in Oakland, California, at 9:28 p.m. You can find her chart online. She is a 24 Gemini rising. And this 24 Gemini rising is not only conjunct the North Node at 25 Gemini, but also conjunct a very special fixed star called Alheka or Alhika, which means to take the bull by the horns. Now, she is also a full moon baby. She's a Libra with a moon in Aries. It's an exact full moon. And the full moon comes out of her 5th and 11th house. We're going to talk about that in a second. So with Gemini rising, Mercury becomes the chart ruler. And remember, I cannot stress this enough, the chart ruler tells the tale. It's the most important thing in the chart next to the sun and the moon. So with the Mercury being the chart ruler and Gemini rising, one of the things, well, some of the things we can expect, one, we can expect her to look much younger than her years forever, right? So black don't crack, beige don't age, Kamala will always look younger than her years. Bless her heart. Now, with Mercury ruling that, and Gemini rising, being Gemini, not Virgo, what this also means is that in this lifetime, none of this communication can be very important to her because the North Node is there indicating what we're here to do. It's our if the South Node is your past life, your North Node is the current and future life. It's your Dharma, right? Not your karma, but your Dharma. So she's here to do Gemini things. And what does Gemini do? In case you didn't know, Gemini builds bridges. Gemini is the connector, okay? So Gemini, much like the reporter and the man on the street, is all about what's happening right now in the immediate area. But one of the primary functions of Gemini is to pass information along and back and forth, right? Communication. And when you pass information back and forth and move it along, you're connecting things. It's like passing a baton to the next person. You're connecting, making a bridge between these things. So her job is to act as a communicator and a connector, a bridge between things. Now, it may not seem that way because she was a DA and a prosecutor before, but, you know, her life's not over. Her life's not over. And, you know, clearly these are all setups for work that she needs to do on a larger scale for everybody else before her time is up. Now, she does carry Saturn in the 9th house, which is the house of legal stuff, typically, and it's close to the midheaven. So typically when you find Saturn in the 9th and or close to midheaven, what you find are people who are extremely judgmental and tend to gravitate towards punitive or penalizing types of professions. So they're very much about right and wrong, like playing by the rules, you know, kind of thing. Which isn't to say they're all jerks, okay? But it is to say that you'll find oftentimes lawyers, judges, especially judges, have strong Saturn and 10th house, strong Saturn and 9th house placements because it's very much about the law, right? Spiritual, man-made, those are the rules and everybody's got to abide by the rules, right? And so it makes sense that that energy would express itself in a career choice of law and then moving on to being the prosecutor on the teams of law you could be on. So she wasn't a defense attorney, she wasn't a public defender, she was a prosecutor, right? You did wrong, these are the rules, now there's your punishment. That's that Saturn in 9th near the midheaven. Now, the thing about it, though, is this may come back to bite her on the butt, depending on her career previously and her decisions and choices previously as a prosecutor or a DA. If these things were not done based on the highest principles involved, both man-made and moral, right? If there was any pettiness or vindictiveness or lack of empathy or any of these things, because law is supposed to also be tempered by compassion. If these things were not present in these decisions, some of these cases may come back to bite her on the butt in a big way. So Saturn will teach you your lessons, where you missed something, okay, where you misapplied the rule. The rule. Okay. Mercury, the chart ruler, is in Scorpio. Now, Mercury in Scorpio is very intense, very plays their cards close to their chest like a card player in a game. So they're very much about keeping their secrets and ferreting out yours. They really want to know what your secrets are because they don't trust anybody. And also, too, Scorpio is a sign of war and power. So Scorpio placements will absolutely intensify or increase the desire for power, and domination. Well, that sounds pretty ominous. So think about this for a second. Her chart ruler is in Scorpio, which is going to give her an increased focus or emphasis or desire in this lifetime for power and domination, right? Control. Coupled with that Saturn in the ninth house, which is very much about the rules, right? You can imagine what she was like when she was doing her job in California. She's got more than a few enemies as a result of her personality in California. And with Alhika, the fixed star, Alhika grabbing the bull by the horns on the ascendant, right? This is somebody who has more than ambition, indomitable will, right? This is somebody who must win at all costs, even if it costs them. All right. Now, we haven't seen this because she so far hasn't seemed to be self-destructive. But again, Saturn will bring you your just desserts at some point in your life. So if she did something she shouldn't have been doing, or ways that she shouldn't have been doing it, the cost for that, there's always a cost with Saturn, the cost for that will come up for review before her life is over. So the other thing about that is with this particular combination and with her moon in Aries, right? Oh my God. And she has Mars and Leo in the third house. So with this combination in this chart, the things that we need to know about this woman is that, one, when they say she's fearless, she's fearless. Like, she is, with this combination in her chart, she is at her best when she's confronted, challenged, or cornered. This is a warrior. This is not somebody you back into a corner and give them no other options. They will come out swinging and they will win. They will win. You will be mincemeat when they're done with you. With Mars in the third house, dispositing that Mercury and the moon, right? And when it comes to verbal sparring or things that have to do with mental strategies and things of that nature, she's a champion chess player. So yikes, right? Yikes. So the debate's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to this just on this alone, right? Because, Trump is the used car salesman, talks in circles and literally, like, he's classic Gemini, right? Just talk until you get so tired and confused you forget what the original question was, right? That's the MO for Geminis. With her, with this Mercury and Scorpio ruling the chart, with Mars and Leo in the third house, dispositing that moon in Aries and Mercury and Scorpio, holy, she's a powerhouse, especially when it comes to debate and disagreements. So I can't wait to see this. But the other thing I want to point out is that with this particular influence, right, this very strong Martian dominating warrior influence, which is what this is. Mentally, she's a warrior. That's why you don't back her in corners, right? She's going to come out swinging in one way or the other. She's going to win this. My concern is that right now, because globally, we're having conflict all over the world. So I don't want more, personally, I don't want more warmongers in office, right? We don't need more people who are ready to, fight at the drop of a dime. Because Biden was very Mars ruled as well. You wouldn't know it, old soft shoe Joe, but he's underneath all of that. He was an eagle. He's absolutely all about war. He saw value and benefit in it, even though he had softened in his old age. So that was a little concerning and may explain some of the choices he did and did not make. She has that same war mentality, like battleground kind of, mindset, which has served her well. Make no mistake about it, it's served her well. And in this administration, when she wins, it will serve her well again, because she will be up against tremendous pushback. There's a whole lot of people that are just not having it. And it doesn't have to be everyone or the majority. Literally, it only takes one person with a gun to ruin your day. and you've got people actively sabotaging you like we had in the Obama administration, that it doesn't take for many people to gum up the works. So she's got her work cut out for her in terms of the pushback and resistance she's going to receive once she's in office. So this mentality is excellent in that regard, okay, because she's going to need it, right? Smaller, weaker people will crumble under this kind of pressure and attack. But once the dust settles, and this is my concern, and this would be with anybody, once the dust settles and things are quiet and peaceful again, what do warriors do then? I mean, if you have somebody who's a fighter, a natural fighter, that is what they do. That is who they are. That is the essence of their nature. We know these people, right? They're at their best in battle, in fights, in quarrels, in arguments, right? Once the dust is settled, then what do? Right? When she was a DA or a prosecutor, the dust never settled. She was constantly in battle. That was her job, was to go battle and champion the victims. But as president, we're not constantly battling everything all the time. And right now, everything's a powder keg out there. We don't, I have concerns, I have concerns. So hopefully it won't be that bad. Now, also to remember, the administration or the team you're surrounded by has everything to do with how you function as a leader, right? So the DNC, the Democrat party that has surrounded her, has made an excellent pick in Tim Walz. So somebody there grew a brain or two, we're happy about that. So I'm hoping that they will also provide the management and amelioration and, just guidance necessary to keep her from acting on her impulses. She is a full moon baby after all. And responding to everything like a challenge to rise up and, dominate kind of thing. You wouldn't know it to look at her because she looks very pretty. She's very photogenic, right? And by the way, when you have Gemini strong in the chart, you always look younger than your years, and often you will look photogenic. So she's very photogenic, very pretty. So she's got a lot of pretty privilege. And like everyone with pretty privilege, we have a hard time seeing negative qualities because it's like, oh, Susan would never do something like that. But, well, she's so pretty. Of course she's nice. Well, John is so handsome. Why, he would never be a serial killer. Mr. Ted Bundy. So, our own biases interfere with our ability to see clearly, but, watch the actions and look at the track record, right? Now, how Trump gets away with what he gets away with, because that man is so freaking homely. He looks like a toad, him and Elon Musk. Ooh, I swear. So they don't have any privilege. Maybe it's, rich man privilege. I don't know. But they have the same kind of bias where people have a bias about them and they don't see past their personal biases. Unfortunately for them, it's flattering bias. Well, unfortunately for us. Okay, now the other thing being a full moon baby. Now here's what's interesting. Because Trump is a full moon baby as well. When you're a full moon baby, there are some things that are interesting about this particular combination. One, it draws attention to you whether you want it or not. Remember, the moon reflects the light and becomes a source of light in darkness that it is not otherwise, right, without being a full moon. So full moon babies tend to attract a lot of attention from the public at large, whether they want to or not. So this is great in positions where you need attention to be vital and relevant. So celebrities, fundraisers, community sponsors, things about the community, party organizers, models, right? And also politicians, anything where you being visible higher and more than everyone around you is good. Being a full moon baby is also very helpful. For those of you who are none of those things, what you may find is no matter what you do, people see you doing it and they remember you. So you're famous in your own right, all right? You're a big fish, a big illuminated fish in a little pond. And that's okay. Use your powers for good, Luke. Okay. Now, some other thing, and we're doing this really quick because I'm not going to put you through 3 hours of video. So we're trying to go through this fast. Now, she has Jupiter and Taurus in the 12th house. Now, I thought this was interesting because she carries the part of fortune on the 7th house of marriage partners and also business partners, partners in general. So she actually, and the South Node is there as well. So the part of fortune in her chart is 24 Sag. The South Node is 25 Sag. They're both on the descendant or the partnership cusp at 25 Sag. So this makes it very, very prominent. So on the one hand, she benefits from partnerships. She benefits from marriage. She benefits from partnerships. She does well working with other people. Even though that full moon and that Mercury in Scorpio ruling the chart would make her a very independent and solo kind of person, she actually benefits from partners, right? And having partners in her life, which probably is good because they're probably a tempering influence. Because full moons can be very impulsive, and with all this dominating, like indomitable will she has, and this desire to have power and control situations, because a little more than paranoid. She needs somebody to act as a modifying, neutralizing sort of influence. Now, with a part of fortune there, this brings her benefit through partnerships. With Jupiter ruling the 7th house, also too, benefits through partnerships. And also what's interesting, right, is that Jupiter is in the 12th house. So the planet ruling her 7th house of partnerships is in the 12th house, which is a very spiritual karmic house. So what this would suggest is that in a lot of ways, whatever she did, if you believe in this, whatever she did in past lives has proven to be extremely beneficial. I mean, who knows? Maybe she saved a bunch of, children from a Sunday school that was on fire, or who knows? But whatever she did, she's done enough of it that she's earned a lot of merit for it. And the benefit is being unfolded and given to her in this lifetime. So she's getting her past life good deeds. The rewards are happening now through the form of good partnerships, right? Good people who are her partners, team members. So the other thing that I thought was interesting with Jupiter in the 12th house ruling 7th house, what this also suggests is that she leans a lot on her marriage partner, if she's married, for her spiritual guidance and comfort and moral support. So Emhoff, that's his name, Douglas Emhoff, the first gentleman. He is extremely instrumental in her keeping her wits about her and keeping her head together, but also her values and her priorities. So they may operate in lockstep formation with each other, and he may have a tremendously powerful influence on her in terms of keeping her above petty. Because remember, with this chart, especially with Mercury and Scorpio, right? She has the ability to be extremely petty. I mean, that moon in Aries, she has the ability to be extremely self-serving, selfish, self-oriented. Aries are not known for thinking about other people first. They think about themselves first, because Aries is the sign of survival, right? It's the infant of the zodiac, and infants don't think about anything except what they need in that immediate moment, right? For obvious reasons. But as an adult, some of that Aries energy doesn't change. So this is, thinking about other people and stuff is not her first instinct. But the marriage partner looking at this, should help evolve some of that, so that rather than being a champion for herself and her needs and her desires, she becomes a champion for everyone, right? Which, is good that she was a prosecutor and DA, because that's a position of championing someone, just like a social worker is, So same job, just different uniforms. All right. And teachers. I love teachers. Okay. So Douglas Emhoff is very, very critical and important in terms of her value system and her prayers, her understanding of the world. So I would take a closer look at Douglas to see what his positions are on things, right? And thank God she's not married to an evangelist. Oh my God, right? Like, we need more wackadoodles in office. But here's the catch. Emhoff is Jewish. And we are having a horrible genocide happening in Palestine. Just horrible, right? Netanyahu's a monster. I told you he was a monster. He continues to prove himself to be a monster. And he's using this conflated victimhood and persecution complex like a shield and a defense and an excuse. It's just... So, and of course, Netanyahu even has the Jewish people divided as far as where they stand on this issue. There are lots of Jewish people who are against what he's doing and are absolutely Palestine supporters, as there are Zionist Jews who believe that all Palestinians need to be wiped from the face of the earth. And, listen, if you're a Zionist, you probably shouldn't be on my channel. I'm going to warn you now. You're not welcome here. So one of the things we want to look at is where Emhoff stands on the Palestine issue, because that's going to influence. He's married to the person. You can't not be influenced by your marriage partner. That's going to influence her thinking and her perception and her positions, personally on the Israel-Palestine situation. I'm not completely sure what it is, so I'm not going to say anything and get it wrong, but you might want to look that up. That'll be very important if I'm reading this chart correctly as far as his influence on her as her marriage partner. Now, luckily, again, she's got lots of good karma from her previous life, so she pulls in good people. I don't imagine this is going to be a huge issue. in terms of him being a bad influence, right? Because, she's earned this. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's good for everybody. What's good for her is not necessarily good for everybody else. So we'll see. So that's that. Now, the other thing I just wanted to touch base on while I'm looking at the chart really, really quick, right? She has Venus. She has Venus in Virgo. Venus is conjunct Uranus and Pluto in that fourth house. So with Venus and Virgo, they're very detail-oriented, which you need to be if you're a prosecuting attorney or a defense attorney or any kind of attorney, right, involving criminals, criminal law. You want to be detail-oriented. There's no room for, like surgery, there's no room for sloppy math here. Okay, you'd better be right. So with Venus and Virgo, very detail-oriented, Venus and Pluto are together, further emphasizing this Plutonian scorpionic energy. So she's like a dog with a bone. Once she gets onto something, she's not letting it go, and she will not let it go until it is done, dead, and buried, right? Formidable. She is indomitable, and she's formidable. This is not somebody you want to piss off, because she will follow you to the ends of the earth until she gets that eye for an eye. With Venus and Virgo, the challenge is not being petty, right? Venus and Virgo is so detail-oriented. They're literally the definition of can't see the forest for the trees. So, she has propensity to be short-sighted, a little petty. I mean, everybody can be petty. Trump is petty as all AF, right? But short-sighted may be the better description. So it is good that she's got Sagittarius on the 7th house of partners, because it also includes her team members in her cabinet. Because Sagittarius is a sign of long-range vision, looking further ahead than here and now. And that's exactly what she needs to balance out, that Venus and Virgo. Venus and Virgo in the 4th house at 17. It's trining Jupiter. So again, like her home life is good. She's earned good family and good home life. Now, for those of you who don't have a good family and good home life, don't panic and don't despair. It's not like you're being punished. But for whatever reason, there was not enough merit in a previous lifetime to give you a peaceful home life this time around. So you're working through some stuff. It's not that you're an awful person, or at least I hope you're not an awful person in this lifetime, but it is very much about working through some issues that were left over from the previous lifetime. She's worked through hers. She's earned a rest in this lifetime and a good, peaceful, solid, positive family. So she's reaping the benefits of her good deeds in a previous lifetime. So there you go. Okay. And what's interesting, and I'm just putting this out, we have no way of knowing. We're never going to know. But she's got that Mars in that 3rd in Leo, squaring Neptune and Scorpio in that 6th. And I'm wondering, because Mars is also in a wide opposition to Saturn in the 9th. So it's basically a T-square. So the 6th house rules the physical body, well, not the physical body, but physical health. And I'm wondering if she doesn't have some type of skin disorder, like psoriasis or eczema or something like that. Like there's a heightened sensitivity and also like hardening around this. And to me, if I'm looking at this correctly, this looks like a skin issue. So she may have, I'm guessing, we don't know, right? She may have eczema or psoriasis or some other type of skin thing where the skin gets hardened, right? Interesting. I don't know. I'm spitballing here. Okay, let's go to the next chart. Now, I looked at the chart for the Harris nomination for vice president back in 2020 to see if there's anything significant going on that would elevate this woman from just another generic senator in Congress to vice president, right? And I have my own personal opinions and suspicions about why Biden chose her out of all the candidates he could pick that checked all the boxes, right? Woman of color, some Senate experience, it's a woman, right? Blah, 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 Democrat, checked all the boxes. But of all the women that he could have picked that checked the same boxes, he chose this one, who's got infinitely less experience in ways that matter, right? So why would he pick her? I've got my own ideas, but we're not going to get into that. So here, well, let's look at the astrology and the official nomination, see if it tells us anything about why she was put there by the cosmos. And one of the interesting things that comes up when you look at the chart, so the vice president nomination occurred on August 11th, 2020 in Washington, D.C. I do not have time for this, and we don't really need it. Because one of the things that was happening at that time is, where's our Jupiter? Yeah, no, I'm not really finding a lot here, honestly. I'm just not finding a lot here. So we've got that Mars Jupiter square, T square, right, being activated by the sun, but I'm not really seeing a whole lot here. So I'm wondering, oh, there it is. It's a grand trine. So she has the at the time the sun was making a trine to Mars in its transit, and at the time it set up a grand trine to her part of fortune in the seventh house of partnerships. Unfortunately, that's the only thing I could find that was of any significance at this time, which pretty much describes her vice presidency. It was pretty insignificant. The only thing significant is that she has now changed hands with Biden, and she's now the presidential candidate. So maybe that's what this was all about. Maybe that's what this is all about. Now, Saturn at this time, transiting Saturn, was absolutely down and around that fourth house, opposed in the seventh, and involving a part of, well, not part of fortune. And also squaring her moon, or that full moon, setting up a T-square. So life-changing things would have been afoot at this time, because it's a T-square. So she carries the full moon at 27 Libra Aries. The transiting Saturn at the time of the nomination was Saturn at 27 Cap, setting up a tight, exact T-square to that full moon in her chart. So major life changes would have been occurring at this time. And this certainly, has been life-changing, because not just vice president, but now she's a presidential candidate. And again, Saturn comes with a heavy cost, so she really needs to do a whole lot of heart reflection and check her ego at the door, unlike her predecessor, and examine where she needs to make right for past transgressions, because these things are definitely going to be holding her up and accountable as she moves forward. So that's interesting. And also Saturn has to do with responsibility, right? Taking on huge responsibilities. So there's that. We'll look more into that later, but that's not imperative right now, because she's officially a presidential candidate. So we have to move forward. Move forward, my friend. Okay. Now we have the chart for Tim Walz, coach. Yay, coach. Tim Walz was born April 6th, 1964. We have an unknown birth time for him. He was born in West Point, Nebraska. So even without a birth time, you can get a lot of information from a chart. Remember that, right? The time just helps pinpoint things and timing, but ultimately all the information is in the planets. So Tim Walz is born with a slew of planets in Aries. He's got the Sun, Jupiter, and Mars all in Aries. Yikes. He has Mercury in Taurus, Venus in Gemini, Uranus and Pluto in Virgo. That's a generational thing. Neptune in Scorpio, generational thing. His moon is in Aquarius. Now, without a birth time, we don't really know where the moon is. So it could be a little earlier in Aquarius, a little later in Aquarius, but chances are it's in Aquarius. I highly doubt, based on what we've seen and what we know about him, that he's moon in Capricorn. He could be, but I doubt it, right? So we're going to go with moon in Aquarius. And of course, he has Saturn at 1 Pisces. So the first thing, when you hear all this Aries, especially with the Sun and Mars and Jupiter in Aries, like the first thing you think, if you're just using keywords, is warmonger, right? Because Aries is the sign of the fighter, the warrior, right? So yeah, just what we need. Two of them backing each other up. But we have to look at the rest of the chart. So Tim Walz is a competitor, because that's the other way of describing Aries. It's a competitor, it's a contestant. It absolutely loves challenges, right? So whatever the challenges you set before them, they will find a way to get into the mix, right? And step up, rise up to the challenge, right? They are contestants. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're brawling barroom fighters, okay? With all of this Aries, especially in a man's chart, Sun, Jupiter, Mars, what you typically get are men who see themselves as manly men. So Aries always has heroes and villains. They're very innocent and childlike in that way, right? Because people are either heroes are amazing, or they're horrible, horrible, evil people, right? So there's a black and white kind of division of how they feel and see people. With time, this matures and they're not quite so extreme, but they like having heroes, because it gives them something to model themselves after. Aries is the sign of the hero. It's also the first sign of spring. So it has everything to do with optimism and confidence and looking forward and hope. Now she has a full moon in Aries. He's got all this Aries. There are connections between these two, and I'll talk about that in a second. But between the two of them, they represent newness, the new of things, brand new beginnings, which is exactly what we want, exactly what we need, and exactly where we should be heading if we have, in fact, turned a corner. And we have, right? Because now the momentum is building and we're moving. So they're absolutely symbolic representative of new civilizations, new worlds, new ways of doing things, not just because of them, but because they're part of a major evolutionary mass consciousness process. Remember, your presidency is always a symbol of mass consciousness. Okay? So, with the sun in Aries and the moon in Aries, we've got a man's man. He sees himself as a man's man. He's also a competitor, a contestant, a challenger. He will not back down from any challenge. He's good for it. And that's also when he's at his best. Kamala is at her best when she's backed in a corner and literally forced to fight. Like, back her in a corner and challenge her, and she will be literally at her best. You don't want to do that with this woman. That's not the tango you want to dance. With him, he's also energized, charged, like revved up, excited, motivated by challenges. He needs a challenge to test himself, to see what he can do, to prove to himself or other people what he's capable of doing. That's that Aries energy, and especially that Sun-Mars energy in a man's chart. Now, with Sun-Mars energy in Aries, also too, in a man's chart, sometimes you get short attention span theater, so they need lots of physical activity to drain some of this stuff off. So thank God he was a football coach, or a sports coach. I'm sure he did a lot of wood chopping and everything, all manly man stuff when he was growing up out in the area he was growing up in. Now, principles are a big thing for Aries. With him, with the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, especially in Aries, it's the principle of the thing. And I don't mean the principle of the thing like, damn you, I'm going to get you. Because it's the principle of the thing. No, not like that. It's not that kind of low, dark energy. This is very bright light energy. So it's very much about the higher principles involved, moving towards elevating to higher grounds, bringing us all up with us. And inspiration is part of that, right? So it makes sense with all this Aries energy that he would have been a sports coach, because he fulfills all of those energies in a positive way, which is even better. So this tells us a lot about his character. And remember, folks, I'll say it again and again and again, an astrology chart will not show you someone's character. It will only show you the potentials, the choices a person makes in life with what they're working with. That is what determines their character, and character is what's going to tell you the story and what to expect from people. All right. With him, clearly based on his choices, he's using these Aries energies in the best way possible. Inspire, lead, coach, empower people to be their best, rise to challenges. These are all sports coach things, right? At their best. Some sports coaches, they're still human. Some sports coaches are nightmares, right? They need therapy, not a job as a coach. But he's not that way. So this is very, very auspicious and very promising. Now, with Jupiter in Aries, Jupiter's your reward system. It's also your karma, right? And Jupiter in Aries is always optimistic, and it's always springtime around the corner. You fall down 9 times, you get up 10, right? Because it's not about the falling down, it's about the getting up. Ah, so good, so good. So Jupiter in Aries is always optimistic and motivated, confident. Early risers, they go on to greet the day. Even if it's the worst thing ever, they know that if it can just get up and fall down 9 times, get up 10, get up that 10th time, they can make it work this time. Because it's not the number of times you fall, it's how many times you get up that matter to them. Oh, I'm so excited about this guy. Now, what's important is that his Jupiter is conjunct Kamala's moon as part of her full moon axis, right? You couldn't ask for, and remember Jupiter rules our 7th house, you couldn't ask for a better teammate or ride or die be than somebody with Jupiter on a personal planet, especially sun or moon. Because what Jupiter is going to do is Jupiter is always going to be there for you. They're always going to support you. They're always going to believe in you, right? They're always going to give you the benefit of the doubt, and they're going to believe in you. They're going to see in you the parts of you can't see in yourself, right? So literally they're therapy in a person. They're wonderful. Now, the other side of that, of course, is they can absolutely do all of those things and be very low vibration energy and just encourage you to do all bad things, right? Jupiter just pumps you up and lifts you, elevates you, and encourages you. Now, what it encourages you to do, good or bad things, has a lot to do with the character of the person who owns the Jupiter. as well as the personal planet receiving Jupiter. Character is everything. In this particular case, we're off to a good start. He's got great character, and he's going to be a very, very important, powerful influence on her because of this Jupiter-Moon conjunction across the charts. So wherever she's stumbling or fumbling or falling short of her highest level of expression, he will be, hopefully, based on what we're seeing, have the ability to bring her up and set her on a course correction in the right direction, which is, her higher self. Yes, we need that. We need that. Now, he has Mercury in Taurus. So the thing about it is Aries is very impulsive. So there's not a lot of distance between thought and action with an Aries. And we don't need more of that in the presidential office either. We've already had that. Thank you, Mr. Trump, right? We need a little bit more space between thought and action. Aries doesn't give us that. So that's a little concerning. So the thing about it, though, is that Mercury, which rules thoughts, for him is in Taurus. So Mercury in Taurus is not quick to jump to any conclusions or make any decisions. It likes to cogitate and mull things over and consider. It is patient, plodding, and slow, but what that means is that when it finally does make a decision, that's it. Its mind is made up. We're good. Make all the considerations I need to make. Now we can move. So with Tim Walz, what you're going to get is someone who's slow to make an opinion, but when they do, their mind will be made up. And then once they've expressed whatever this thought, opinion, course of action is, the action following it is pretty quick, right? So that's good. So we want that long pause time before we commit to actions. So that's good. We'll take that, especially considering our fearless leader is going to be a full moon baby who's quick to jump to impulses. Yeah. Now, with Mercury in Taurus, now remember his Venus is in Gemini, which puts Mercury and Venus in mutual reception. So they work well off of each other. Mutual receptions in charts make it easier for the two planets to work together, like a three-legged race, potato sack race, or, like Survivor Island, and this is your partner is literally the only way you're going to get through this, right? So Mercury and Venus together in mutual reception, his chart is brilliant because what this also does, it gives him not only excellent communication skills. He's able to talk to the layperson, the average man, the man on the street. He has that ability to speak at a very plain level, which we desperately need because very few of us can afford Ivy League educations. So we don't, there are a whole lot of very large, abstract, complicated, sophisticated things happening in the world. The machine in place is very complicated and sophisticated and confusing, and without a higher education specific in those areas, it's overwhelming. We have no freaking idea how any of this works. It's a lot, right? We're just trying to pay our bills right now, more so now than ever before. So what we need is somebody who can speak in a plain language and make these things understandable to us in languages we understand, right? It doesn't matter how much you understand something. If you can't explain it to somebody, it's not doing anybody any good. Ask your doctor for a simple explanation sometime and see what you get. All that college fills your head with all sorts of information and big fancy vocabularies and very complicated concepts. Sometimes it makes it difficult for them to remember how to say it in simple words, right? But he's got that knack for being able to speak in plain language that the average person can understand, which is going to be brilliant. So his ability to be a diplomat is absolutely accentuated, and his ability to be a bridge builder, because remember, Gemini is building bridges, be a bridge builder and a connector between very disparate things, ideas, people, situations, circumstances, entities, off the charts positive. So he is going to be very important as these things move on. Now he does carry Venus square Saturn. So Venus is at 2 Gemini, Saturn's at 1 Pisces. That's a little tense, right? Because, Venus and Gemini square Saturn, he's got his own issues. And we don't know what this is about. So this could be something because Gemini rules siblings as well as neighbors and early childhood. So because Saturn's always a sticking point in our psyche. So something may have happened in his early childhood, either with a sibling or with the neighbors or the local neighborhood kids, the community kids or early school kids, right? That really stuck in his memory and has become a sticking point in his psyche. Now, the thing about it is when these things happen to people, one of two things happen. Either we stay stuck there and, we don't get past it. We just become more of the thing that we hated, right? Bullies, for example, or, and all the negative biases that come with whatever this experience was. Or this thing teaches us compassion and empathy for whatever reason. The thing is enough that it changes our perception and opens up the doors of perception and makes us more aware of how these things are when they go sideways, when they're not good. We don't know what that experience was. We don't know how he's turned out from that. We're going to find out. But whatever it is, for him, there's a very strong bias, irrational bias or fear associated with something that is connected to early childhood, either with his sibling, the neighbors, the neighborhood kids, the school kids in elementary school, something like that. That he is working through in this lifetime. Now remember, he has a mutual reception with Mercury and Venus. So not only does he have the ability to examine himself, literally step back and look at himself when these things come up and be aware that this is an irrational bias that's kicking in, he also has the ability to sidestep that and move past that, which is fantastic. We should all have that in our charts. Okay, he has the moon in Aquarius. Moon in Aquarius, which is a saving grace here among many, many things. That moon in Aquarius we think is close to a trine with Venus and Gemini, which also helps him step back and not be so deeply entrenched in whatever those irrational biases are. The other thing is that he, Mr. Midwest, or wherever he's from, Mr. Nebraska here, coach, is actually a lot more progressive than people realize. So he has, because moon in Aquarius, it's all about the future, right? Evolution, the future. Where are we going with this? What's ahead of us? How can we do this bigger, better, and different than we've been doing it before? So that moon in Aquarius tends to be less emotionally invested in the future and much more intellectually invested in the future. So as far as being able to see the big picture and the overview, he's much better able to pull back and up and see, get the bigger picture overview of the future and where we need to go, which is, we desperately need this right now as the ship in the ocean of consciousness has made its course correction and we're starting to move in the direction we're trying to go. We need somebody who can see further down and guide by the stars, as it were, by higher things that can get us where we need to be. So one of the things that I'm going to say about Tim Walz is that I don't know, and there's some other things I don't have time to get into in this video. I don't know what he's going to do, but I can tell you that Tim Walz is in this position because he is instrumental in something seriously significant as we move forward in the evolution of our country and society and global affairs. Like, Tim's got a huge important role to play here. And I don't know how it's going to play or what it is, but it's there. So watch this space. You thought it was Kamala, it's actually Tim. So she was the vehicle to bring Tim on board. Okay, now we looked at the nomination for Tim that occurred on August 6, 2024 in Washington, D.C. Again, I don't have birth time, don't care. And we looked at it against his chart to see if there's anything significant going on that can tell us a little bit as vice president. And here's where it is. Pluto was at 0 degrees Aquarius at the time of this nomination. His moon, we know, is somewhere before or after 3 degrees Aquarius, right? So it's right there in orb. Pluto on that moon means that if Tim and that progressive mindset and that ability to rise above things and have a bird's eye view of the bigger picture, all of these things are going to be very, very instrumental on a mass level. Pluto, right? So he's there by design and by fate. He's got important work that he's going to need to do as this goes on. So that's what his vice presidency is about. I don't think either one of them realize how important he is as we move forward. Okay, so now we're going to finish up with the synastry between these two. So, and we're just going to hit the highlights. Now, the thing with compatibility charts and synastry, you can do it for every relationship that you're having. It doesn't have to be just romantic. And again, the relationship is determined by the character of the individuals involved, not the charts. The charts may show you how easy it is to be with each other. It does not show the success or the benefit of the relationship, ultimately. Because character. And I'll tell you a story someday, because I just went through this where I had a beautiful chart set up. The synastry was amazing, and I don't have an easy chart. The composite was ridiculous. Like, are you serious? Like, the only thing that it didn't promise was big bags of gold landing in your lap from getting involved with each other. It was beautiful. The problem is the person that I had these aspects with, their character development was very stunted. That we're both at the end of our lives. So this has been a lifetime of being a certain way. and having those behaviors reinforced. So the character was not good. Um, and, they're working on it. They're going through therapy and trying to sort stuff out, but it's going to take a lot. And they're literally going to have to be a completely different person to have the kind of character that actually brings anything good to a relationship, because they're just not in that place, and they haven't been. And none of the good things have been reinforced prior to now, right? So there's nothing you can do with them, even though the chart promises all sorts of good stuff. Now, it's been a good experience knowing this person, because he has been a catalyst for change in my life in huge ways that really got me unstuck from things that I've been dealing with for decades, right? So it's been, even that brief encounter was amazing and positive in its outcome, because good things came of it, because I'm choosing to make this a good thing. But in terms of day-to-day living together relationship, character, he's got a lot of work to do. I do too, but between the two of us, there's character issues that would make a sustainable relationship moving forward impossible at this point in time. So the charts can only give you so much information. They will not guarantee a successful relationship in a positive way. That is your character. And with that said, let's go back to this. And you can do the charts for anybody, friends, siblings, business partners, not just romantic ones. There's all sorts of relationship compatibility things you can look at. And the way to determine if the astrological compatibility is going to be successful is first to determine, be honest about what the nature of the relationship is. So if you're some young honey looking for a sugar daddy or a sugar mama, and honestly, like, you're only interested in this relationship is because, the finances, finance before romance. And listen, I'm not going to bang you for it. I don't like it, but I'm not going to bang you for it, because this has been going on since time began, right? But if that's the case, when you're looking at these charts and you're talking to an astrologer, you have to be honest about that, right? Because if that's what you want, we need to see that this is what it's going to, the fruit it will yield. Judge a tree by the fruit it yields. If your desire is to have children and a happy, peaceful home life with someone, whether it's a roommate or a marriage partner, that relationship has specific things we want to look for in astrological markers that will give us that. So be very clear and honest about what the purpose and intention of this relationship is for you before you start, mucking around these charts trying to determine if you should say yes or no to something. All right. Kamala and Tim. So here are the highlights. So the first thing we know about that Moon-Jupiter conjunction, which dominates the entire chart, it's the most fantastic aspect you can possibly have. Jupiter on your moon is your ride or die bee, honey. They're there for you. They've got your back. Unequivocally, inarguably, absolutely, and without hesitation, they've got your back. And they mean it. That's a beautiful aspect to have. So Tim is going to be a huge asset and benefit and protection to her. I'm so happy he's on the ticket. Okay? Oh my gosh. Now, they do have some issues here, right? So let me take a look, because I think it was her Mars. No, it was her Venus. That's what it was. So he's got all these Aries planets that are quincunxing her Venus. So remember, Aries is all about the future. Let's go, 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 go. Like, just get over it and move on. They don't hold grudges. They don't have time for that. Too much weight. Gotta go. Like, there's a whole future out there, and you want to hear and stew about something stupid? Like, that was yesterday. Move on, right? And especially when they're the ones who did something wrong. Just forget about it. But it's all quincunxing her Venus. So there may be some challenges, because she can be, again, short-sighted and petty, can't see the forest for the trees sort of syndrome, whereas he's very much about move, get out of the way. So he can get frustrated by her inability to let go of stupid things, right? And her persnickety nature. So that may be a bone of contention between the two of them. Also, too, his moon in early Aquarius squares her chart ruler, Mercury in Scorpio. So they're both very, very, very hard-headed, stubborn, fixed in opinions and stuff. So they're not going to agree on everything. And matter of fact, in many ways, he is going to be the more progressive person, which makes sense because Kamala, and this is just my opinion, as far as I'm concerned, Kamala is a corporate hack. She's all about business, which is why they're all supporting her in mass, right? Trump being a lunatic aside. So her corporate support has a lot to do with the fact that she is corporate aligned. Okay, she's not as progressive people are trying to paint her as. Tim, on the other hand, is, and I think that's going to be where it becomes a bone of contention between them, because she's very much about power and domination and winning, whereas he's very much about the future and what's good for everyone in the big picture. So this is going to be challenging between them. There's not a whole lot of other big, strong aspects between the chart. So we'd really have to get in and start splitting hairs. And we're just going to kind of whiz past that because we're already in an hour with this video. All right. And now, my friends, the thing I didn't want to do, because I'm tired of that man's face, I'm sick of hearing his name. This minute I hear his voice, I turn the TV off or change channel. I just can't with him. So grudgingly, I'm going to give you 5 minutes of airtime for him, and hopefully this will be the last we need to discuss him, short of him, going to prison or a hospital or a prison hospital. All right, so Donald Trump. So we have to, in fairness, look at, is Donald Trump actually a contender for winning the presidential nomination in November, right? Now, the debate is tonight. I meant to put this up yesterday, but my computer went haywire. Again, 4 hours of work, 2.5 hours of video gone because the audio never recorded. So we're doing it now. All right, so one of the things that's going on with Trump since June, you might want to go back and Google this, right, to see what's going on in June, is that Uranus has been conjuncting the fixed star Algol, which has been rolling back and forth across his midheaven, depending on which ascendant you use. I use Virgo rising. Everybody else is they're not talking about it so much anymore, but for the longest time, everybody was like, he's Leo rising. He's not. He's Virgo rising. So with Virgo rising, Uranus and Algol back and forth across the midheaven, right, which is public image, reputation, and status. So Uranus has been sending shockwaves, literally breaking up the status quo, shockwaves cleaving, separating a lot of things that have to do with his image in the public and who he really is, right? So it's really shaking the tree and bringing the truth out. We've been seeing it, and it's especially active since June of 2024. Now, interestingly, in June of 2024 with Trump's chart, what was also happening is Saturn station retrograde. This is interesting. Saturn station retrograde at 19 Pisces, which set up a T-square to his Sun-Uranus full moon opposition in his chart. So June was a pivotal point in his life in terms of getting his comeuppance. Okay, comeuppance, which means getting your due rewards, right? The things you've earned, good or bad, right? Being put in your place, being brought down a peg or two. Getting his comeuppance, like in June, was the month, okay? And so we're looking at it, we're like, well, what does that mean? Like, what? Okay, and like he's still here, he's still on the ticket, like they're still backing him. But remember, stories don't have to make sense until we get to the end. So the puzzle isn't finished yet. We still got puzzle pieces out there that aren't in place. In June, one of the things that also happened was the Biden-Trump debate on June 27th. Now, Saturn made the station on June 29th. So technically, that Biden-Trump debate occurred almost directly under that Saturn station. Okay, now, you remember the debate, which was a debacle, right? Like that, it's like, well, how could that have been bad for Trump? Like that actually looked like it benefited Trump, right? Because Biden was just disastrous, right? But remember, this is the tipping point, the trigger. And what happened as a result of this debate? Biden was enthusiastically requested to step the hell down and let Kamala take over, because if you don't step down, we're going to lose this election, right? And of course, the big egomaniac fought and kicked and dug his heels in, but he finally relented, all right? And now we have Kamala as the presidential nomination. And here's the thing. The Trump team was not ready for this. Trump certainly isn't ready he's not ready for anything, but the entire team around him that props him up like the dead man in Weekend at Bernie's, they were not prepared for this. So all of the campaigning, advertising, and everything that they had set up and paid for and produced prior to now, because listen, commercials, ads, video productions, these things are not done overnight on Photoshop. These take months to get set up and planned for and prepared and then produced and then put out to the public on a schedule. They're already done, right? Paid for, produced, and done. All this is already done, focused exclusively on Biden as the competition. Now Biden's not the competition, it's Kamala, and they got caught flat-footed because we're only a few months out from the election. They do not have the time or the resources to go back and redo all their campaign ads. So they literally don't have a whole lot of anything to work with except Trump and how he presents himself. And this is what happened when Saturn set up a T-square to his full moon in his chart, and Uranus stationed on that midheaven. So this was the big shakeup and the big karmic consequence that was coming from this for Trump. It was not Biden. It was Kamala taking Biden's place at the last minute as a result of this debate. So the debate was the vehicle, not the consequence. Okay, thought that was interesting. Now, you got to know, this is September, we are having a Pisces eclipse. Oh my God. So we're feeling the Pisces eclipse all month long, and we're definitely feeling it for up to 6 months afterwards. So the ripple effect from eclipses are easily 6 months long. So this is going to take us into March. With that said, this Pisces eclipse sets up, again, another T-square, pow, pow, another T-square to the full moon in his chart, which comes out of the 4th and 10th house. So, and Pisces in his chart, it's coming out of his, this is going to come out of his 8th house of financial support from other people and shared resources and debts, taxes, liabilities, other people's money. So this eclipse in that 8th house sets up T-square to that 4th, 10th house. So whoever he owes money to, he may be up for collections now by March. So financially or, spiritually, the debt is being collected. Also, too, because it's coming out of the 4th and 10th house, there's a possibility that there's a residence change, or because 4th house is end of life stuff. This is big stuff. So I would not be surprised if, the end of Trump comes by March. And in order for it to be the end of Trump, it means that he would not be president. Because if he were president, this would not be the end of Trump. So I don't see him being the presidential candidate. But of course, I refuse to believe he could be president when he won the first time in 2016. So at this point, anything's possible. Donkeys can fly, pigs can sing, fish can gargle, anything is possible. The sky is pink, anything's possible. Okay, now remember that Uranus Algol fixed star conjunction on his midheaven we were just talking about? Well, here are some other things to consider. While this has been happening, it has also been squaring his Mars in Leo in the 12th house. Now, I know there are some people who attribute a whole lot of things to Mars and Leo in the 12th house that do not belong there. Things like courage, valor, bravery, principles. Those are not Mars and Leo in the 12th house things. Mars and Leo in the 12th house has a lot to do with, the things we don't want to deal with. Also hidden rage, resentment, right? There's a whole lot of really rich psychotherapy stuff happening here with Mars in the 12th house. Which is not unexpected given his family history. I'm pretty sure his father ignored him and thought nothing of him for the longest time because the golden boy in the family was Trump Sr.'s favorite son. I think his name was Fred or Philip. Fred, the oldest boy who committed suicide. And once the boy committed suicide, then Trump Sr. had no choice. No, Fred's the father. Had no choice but to lavish all of his attention and efforts for legacy onto Knucklehead, right? So, can you imagine growing up knowing that you are not only not the esteemed favorite child of your parent, but you are literally the last resort choice, only because the golden boy died, right? That's gotta sting. So his Mars in the 12th house has a lot to do with all sorts of repressed resentment and anger and rage and, matters of competency and value. And he's a psychotherapist dream. So Uranus conjunct Algol on the midheaven has been squaring that Mars, right? Yikes! Good God! I really thought he'd have had a stroke by now, or a complete mental breakdown. But maybe he's doing it in pieces. Now remember, he's got a whole team propping him up like the dead man in the movie Weekend at Bernie's. So who knows? There's a whole lot we're not going to know because they're not going to let us know. They're going to hide it from us. But with this particular aspect, one of the things that I would look at, and remember this started back in June of 2024. I would not be surprised if that man has not already had a mini stroke. You can have mini strokes. I'm telling you, brain function, huge issues here, health, all sorts of stuff. So I think he may have had a mini stroke back in June. He's certainly unraveling like somebody who may have had a couple of strokes. And a mental breakdown is not outside the realm of possibility. It's possible that he has literally gone cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs as we speak, and it's only by the grace of God and a really strong management team that we're not seeing how bad it really is. But it's bad. It's bad. This is not. This is not a good aspect. And typically, if there's for anybody else, one of the things I warn them is they're under tremendous stress test at this point. There's a lot of environmental or external pressure on them that's going to wreak a lot of havoc with their mental health. And this would be a really important time to get right with God, have a come to Jesus moment or whatever your thing is. Like go have a conversation with Allah, or sit with a Buddha, and definitely get some therapy because this is a pressure cooker aspect. So this is happening this has been happening since June. Come November 5th, it will be almost exact. So come November 5th, he will literally have a reason for his head to pop off his shoulders and him to lose his ever-loving mind. Don't be surprised, and no one is, if he doesn't resort to calls for violence and all this sort of stuff. Because remember, Mars is about resentment and rage. So all his deep, buried history that we're not privy to, that's made him the neurotic mess that he is. And I'll tell you now, one of my old videos, I called it, this man is a hypochondriac who does not like to get his hands dirty, but that doesn't mean that he's not into pee play, right? It's a weird thing with these neurotic sort of expressions. Anyway, this is the sign of somebody who's about to have a major freaking meltdown. So all that repressed rage and anger and resentment and I'll get you kind of thing is not about us, right? It's about Daddy and his brother, his dead brother, who is the golden boy. Okay, so all that stuff is going to come into full bloom in November. So plan, prepare, be safe, and understand that especially if you're, God forbid, a Trump forgiver or supporter, you got to understand these calls of violence has nothing to do with you. He doesn't give a rat's patootie about any of us, especially you ignorant, undereducated, classless human being. That's how he sees you because you're not him. You're not at his level, right? You're not Richie rich, so you don't count. You're just trash. You're what is it? Like the Russians call Trump, you're a useful idiot. So when he calls for violence, it's not because he's defending you. It's because he's trying to get you to mobilize so he can have the grand, dramatic expression of his violent rage and resentment of his father and his brother, his dead brother. So there you go. That's going to be the 5 minutes of airtime we're going to give him. All right. So my friends, this is it. This is it. Harris and Walz for the win. The debate is tonight. Watch it. This should be entertaining. I'm looking forward to this. And that's it. Love y'all. Sorry I don't have charts for you again. I'll try and set them up in the community tab a little later if you really want to see the physical charts. And that's it. Bye.